You know the moment is coming, but you still watch. The car turns onto Elm Street, smiles, sunlight on polished chrome, a president waving to the people, alive in a moment that he doesn't know is about to end. And every time I watch this, I want to reach through the lens of history, grab him by the shoulder and say, "Don't go this way, turn around." But history doesn't listen. It only plays back. Here is the official story. He was shot and killed by a sniper, officially identified as Lee Harvey Oswald, who fired from the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository. Kennedy's death shocked the nation and the world, leading to widespread mourning and intense speculation. Although the Warren Commission concluded that Oswald acted alone, doubts and conspiracy theories have persisted for decades, with many questioning the number of shooters, the role of the government, and the true motive behind the assassination. Here are the members of the Warren Commission. Earl Warren, Chief Justice of the United States, would go on to seal certain JFK autopsy files for 75 years. Richard Russell Jr., U.S. Senator from Georgia. He disagreed with the commission's final report, but his dissent was mostly buried. LBJ even admitted Russell didn't buy it, but his objections were glossed over in the final findings. John Sherman Cooper, U.S. Senator from Kentucky. Although a highly respected lawmaker, he had a lack of investigative experience, made him easy to manipulate. Hale Boggs, U.S. Representative from Louisiana. He would later share his doubts with many aspects of the FBI's involvement in the investigation. His plane would go down in Alaska just a few years after the commission finished up. Gerald R. Ford, U.S. Representative from Michigan, later the 38th president. Ford admitted in 1997 he changed the location of JFK's back wound in the report to support the single bullet theory. That makes some folks question what else got edited. John J. McCloy, former president of the World Bank, High Commissioner for Germany, and Assistant Secretary of War, a highly connected insider with a reputation for getting things done behind the scenes, a wise man of post-war American power. Beyond being highly connected and wealthy, he has no true purpose for being on the commission. Allen Dulles, former director of the CIA. When we say former, it's because he was fired by Kennedy. But there is a problem with this story. The single bullet theory proposed by the Warren Commission claims that one bullet fired by Lee Harvey Oswald hit President Kennedy in the upper back, exited through his throat, and then struck Texas Governor John Connally, who was seated in front of him. According to the theory, the bullet entered Connally's back, exited his chest, shattered his wrist, and finally lodged in his thigh, all in one continuous path. This explanation was critical because investigators believed only 3 shots were fired in total. 1 missed, 1 was the magic bullet, and 1 killed Kennedy. If more than 1 bullet hit both men, it would suggest more than 1 shooter, pointing to a possible conspiracy. Supporters of the theory say it's possible based on medical reports, ballistic tests, and Connally's seating position, especially if he was slightly turned. However, critics argue that the bullet, found nearly intact on a hospital stretcher, couldn't have caused that much damage without being deformed. They also question the exact alignment of the wounds and the idea that the bullet changed direction mid-air, which is why it's mockingly called the magic bullet. For many, this theory is the linchpin. If it's true, Oswald likely acted alone. If it's false, then the door to a broader conspiracy swings wide open. The Warren Commission report link is in the description.
only way.
Kennedy has long been a source of public fascination and skepticism. After JFK was assassinated on November 22, 1963, the U.S. government formed the Warren Commission to investigate. The commission concluded that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone, but public trust in that finding was shaky from the start. In the 1970s, new information, especially after the Watergate scandal, fueled deeper suspicions. This led Congress to form the House Select Committee on Assassinations, HSCA, which concluded in 1979 there was likely a conspiracy, probably involving a second shooter. As public interest grew, pressure mounted to release classified documents related to the assassination. One of the most significant moments came with the passing of the JFK Assassination Records Collection Act of 1992, following the release of Oliver Stone's film JFK.
We found this in your office. We think the conference room is also bugged, maybe the phones.
I'm not cooperating here. Listen, there's a death warrant for me.
Are the same people gonna kill us, Pop?
Nobody's gonna kill us.
Y'all gotta get into your minds how the hell the spooks think. Now, they're not ordinary crooks. Think the unthinkable. Question everything. Now, we're through the looking glass here, people. White is black, and black is white. You don't believe me? All this time, you never believed me.
I just want to raise our children and live a normal life. I want my life back.
Look, this thing's bigger than all of us.
Now, how many courts is it going to take for you lawyers to figure out what you want?
People got to know. People got to know why he was killed.
Do you know what you've done to me? I'm a dead man!
Well, if they can kill the president, they can certainly get me.
You're a mouse fighting a gorilla.
You're close. You're closer than you think.
There's gonna be an attempt to kill you somewhere between here and New Orleans.
I say let justice be done over heaven's fall.
Housed in the National Archives and set a deadline. All records had to be fully released by October 26, 2017, unless the president determined that national security concerns warranted continued secrecy. While many documents were released in waves between 2017 and 2021, thousands were either heavily redacted or withheld entirely, triggering frustration and more speculation. Leaks and whistleblowers have added more fuel to the fire. Former CIA officials, anonymous insiders, and even some historians have hinted that the intelligence community may have withheld critical information, either about Oswald's activities in Mexico City, his contact with Cuba and Soviet operatives, or CIA surveillance prior to the assassination. In particular, files connected to CIA officer George Jonides, who was involved in anti-Castro operations and monitored Cuban exile groups Oswald may have interacted with, have never been fully released. More on that later. Critics argue that redactions protect institutional reputation more than national security, and some believe the withheld files point to CIA foreknowledge or complicity. The conspiracies around the JFK papers are wide-ranging. Some theorists believe the CIA or FBI had a hand in the assassination due to Kennedy's supposed resistance to Cold War hawkishness. Others suspect mob involvement, Cuban revenge, or internal power struggles. The persistence of secrecy more than 60 years later has only deepened public doubt. Even mainstream journalists and historians have questioned why full transparency is still resisted. As of now, while most of the documents are technically available, redactions and withheld files continue to stoke suspicions that the government is hiding something, whether that's direct involvement, embarrassment over intelligence failures, or undisclosed international connections. So here we are in 2025. As promised by him during the campaign, President Trump signed an executive order to release all the documents related to JFK and Martin Luther King Jr.
Lastly, sir, we have an executive order ordering the declassification of files relating to the assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, and the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
That's a big one, huh? A lot of people are waiting for this for years, for decades. And everything will be revealed. Okay. Give that to RFK Jr.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The documents took weeks, and for those that were waiting, there was a sense that they would somehow not come out, or something would be butchered along the way. So we have 2 days to thank. March 18th, 2025 is the most significant release. NARA published around 77,000 to 80,000 pages of declassified documents online and in person. This included approximately 31,000 newly unredacted pages in 2 waves that evening, plus an additional 13,700 pages on March 29th. March 31st, 2025. By this date, per Trump's March 17th directive, all previously classified JFK assassination records were officially released without redactions, totaling nearly 80,000 pages, now fully accessible via NARA's website. Would the truth stay in the shadows? While we're going through this, remember, they no longer feel the need to explain anything to anyone at any time, for any reason. At first glance, most of the newly classified JFK documents seem routine. Cold War cables, internal memos, logistical clutter from a paranoid era. Take Doc ID 32424015, for example. A 1962 communication about radio upgrades in South America. Interesting, maybe, but what's it doing in a JFK file? And that's the point. It's not what's in some of these documents that's alarming, it's why they were kept secret in the first place, and what's still being withheld. We have these in 3 categories. Let's start with number 1. Oswald wasn't alone. Let's start with the documents that peel back the curtain on Oswald's role, or more accurately, his manipulation. Document 104-10431-10278, a CIA cable from Mexico City, October 1963. It confirms Lee Harvey Oswald visited both the Soviet and Cuban embassies. That's old news. But the newly unredacted portion? A bombshell. It suggests a second man, a doppelganger, may have posed as Oswald at one of the embassies. The CIA expected it at the time. So why are we just now learning this? Document 104-1004-10310. This once redacted FBI memo references George Jonides, a CIA case officer tied to anti-Castro Cuban exile groups. Turns out he wasn't just an agency suit in Miami. He was the handler for the DRE, the same group Oswald interacted with in New Orleans. So now we have a direct pipeline. Oswald, DRE, Jonides, CIA. Document 104-10177-10187. Proof that the DRE was getting over $50,000 a month from the CIA. So when the DRE painted Oswald as a communist right after JFK's murder, they weren't just political activists, they were government-funded operatives. Document 104-10127-10377. An internal memo names Jonides as the chief of psychological warfare for the CIA's Miami station in 1963. Then, in the late 1970s, he was assigned as the CIA's liaison to the House Select Committee on Assassinations. One problem, he never disclosed his role with the DRE or Oswald. That's not an oversight, that's obstruction. Document 104-10014-10010. This memo shows the CIA's covert action staff was monitoring Oswald's pro-Castro activities through the FPCC. But some researchers now argue Oswald's actions weren't authentic. They were part of an op. He may have been encouraged or used as bait in a low-level intelligence sting, a setup. Document 157-10014-10281. A post-assassination Soviet memo calls Oswald unstable and untrustworthy, not the type we would recruit. That undermines the whole Oswald was a Soviet spy story, and instead, it supports the idea that if he acted, it wasn't for the USSR. Document 104-10431-10017. Turns out the CIA had a 201 file on Oswald dating back to 1960. They kept saying he was just a drifter, a nobody. But this proves the opposite. He wasn't off the radar. He was the radar. Number 2, CIA manipulated public perception. Sometimes the most damning clues don't come from spies in the field, but from what's said at desks in D.C. Document 62-109060-18. Memo from J. Edgar Hoover, 11/23/1963. Just one day after the assassination, Hoover writes, "We must convince the public that Oswald was the real assassin. Not investigate, not follow the evidence, just convince the public." This wasn't a quest for truth. It was a public relations directive. Document 157-10014-10232. A military intelligence memo lays out theoretical Soviet or Cuban responses if Fidel Castro were assassinated. One option, a retaliatory hit on a major U.S. political figure. There's no direct link to JFK here, but the timing, paranoia, and planning overlap can't be ignored. These aren't smoking guns, they're fog machines, and the smoke hasn't cleared even now. Number 3, Mexico City is a black hole. The deeper you look into Mexico City, the more the story falls apart, or worse, looks deliberately staged. Document 104-10015-10013. Surveillance photos from October 1st, 1963 show a man leaving the Soviet embassy, a man who does not resemble Oswald. Yet, official records say Oswald was there that day. The newly released note, CIA officers weren't even confident it was him. So, was this a breadcrumb trail? Were they manufacturing a Soviet connection, planting visual evidence for later? Mexico City was crawling with intelligence surveillance, photographic logs, audio taps, physical tales, and somehow the most important suspect of the 20th century vanishes into thin air during his time there. So, what do all these threads tell us? Oswald wasn't a lone nut. He was being watched, maybe nudged, maybe played. He moved through a Cold War stage teeming with CIA-funded actors, psychological ops, and embassy drama, and then took the fall of the century. And when the shot rang out in Dealey Plaza, the intelligence community didn't just launch an investigation, they managed the narrative. They shaped it, controlled it, still do. What's still redacted? Even in 2025, we're not seeing the full picture. The Biden administration has authorized withholding hundreds of documents on national security grounds. Ask yourself, national security for who? Still hidden from the public is, number 1, foreign informants in Mexico, Cuba, and Miami, some of whom may have worked for the CIA or the Exile Network. Number 2, personnel files for major intelligence players like David Atlee Phillips, Howard Hunt, and others tied to the Bay of Pigs. 3, connected programs like Operation Mongoose and CIA Mafia hit plots, ops that may not have pulled the trigger, but help build a climate where it was possible. The CIA isn't just shielding people, they're shielding the system. They no longer feel the need to explain anything to anyone at any time for any reason. Patterns that can't be ignored. Every major declassification wave from the 1990s to 2017 to today confirms a few uncomfortable truths. Number 1, Mexico City is a black hole. Despite high-level surveillance, the CIA couldn't or wouldn't pin down Oswald's actions. 2, the Cuban exile world was a CIA playground. Oswald's connections to DRE, FPCC, and others placed him in the middle of a hornet's nest built by Langley. George Jonides is the linchpin. He ran the op, obstructed Congress. His files are still redacted. Why? 4, Oswald's image was sculpted. The phony surveillance photos, the press leaks, the embassy sightings. Was this incompetence or a frame job? So, where does this leave us? JFK was likely killed in a covert domestic operation, one involving elements of the CIA, perhaps alongside rogue exiles or mafia intermediaries. Why? Because he threatened the status quo. He sought peace. He talked of ending Vietnam. And he openly vowed to splinter the CIA into 1,000 pieces. It's hard not to feel that way. Lee Harvey Oswald was the fall guy, positioned, prepped, played. And the CIA, they didn't just investigate the crime, they managed in the aftermath. They buried evidence, misled Congress, and 60 years later, they're still hiding the truth. The JFK assassination isn't just about who pulled the trigger. It's about why the truth has been buried and what that says about power, secrecy, and the limits of American democracy. If you still believe the Warren Commission, you haven't been paying attention. They no longer feel the need to explain anything to anyone at any time for any reason.
In New York, we have just been advised from Dallas that blood transfusions are being given to President Kennedy. Let us recall for you now what has transpired in this.
KRLD is reporting they've been told by somebody in the hospital the president's dead. Only a rumor, but they've been told that. KRLD is saying.
Well, that's a repeat of something that you heard reported to you directly a moment ago from KRLD television in Dallas, and that is the rumor that has reached them at the hotel that the president is dead. Totally unconfirmed, apparently, as yet. However, let's go back to KRLD in Dallas.
Operating room, we do not know what his condition is, but the report is that the president is dead. This is not confirmed. This is something that word just came to us a minute ago. The word we have is that President Kennedy is dead. This we do not know for a fact. The word we have is that he is dead, that he was shot by an assassin at the intersection of Elm and Houston Streets just as he was going into the underpass. The word we have is from a doctor on the staff of Parkland Hospital who says that it is true. He was in tears when he told me just a moment ago. This is still not officially confirmed, but as I say, the source would normally be a good one.
That was Eddie Barker at our affiliate KRLD in Dallas, Texas, speaking from the room where President Kennedy had been scheduled to make an address to 3 Dallas organizations, but an assassin's bullets cut him down on the way to that meeting from the airport. It was just an hour ago that the incident took place. We have just learned, however, that Father Huber, one of the 2 priests called into the room, has administered the last sacrament of the church to President Kennedy. Regarding the probable assassin, the sheriff's officers have taken a young man into custody at the scene, a man 25 years old. We just have a report from our correspondent Dan Rather in Dallas that he has confirmed that President Kennedy is dead. There is still no official confirmation of this, however. It's a report from our correspondent Dan Rather in Dallas, Texas. We're now going into that Dallas luncheon the president had planned to address. Let's go back. Prayers, we understand, are underway.
That we may reveal that promise that shall be pleasing to thee. And that we shall...
Vice President Lyndon Johnson has not been seen in the corridors of the Parkland Hospital. He was said to perhaps have been slightly wounded in the arm. Mrs. Lyndon Johnson says that the vice president, though, is fine. Throughout the streets of Dallas, the Dallas police had been augmented by some 400 policemen called in on their day off because there were some fears and concerns in Dallas that there might be demonstrations, at least, that could embarrass the president. Because it was only on October the 24th that our ambassador to the United Nations, Adlai Stevenson, was assaulted in Dallas, leaving a dinner meeting there. From Dallas, Texas, the flash, apparently official, President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, some 38 minutes ago.
What kind of a peace do I mean, and what kind of a peace do we seek? Not a Pax Americana, enforced on the world by American weapons of war. Not the peace of the grave or the security of the slave. I am talking about genuine peace, the kind of peace that makes life on earth worth living, the kind that enables men and nations to grow and to hope and build a better life for their children. Not merely peace for Americans, but peace for all men and women. Not merely peace in our time, but peace in all time. I speak of peace, therefore, as the necessary, rational end of rational men. I realize the pursuit of peace is not as dramatic as the pursuit of war, and frequently the words of the pursuers fall on deaf ears. But we have no more urgent task. Our problems are man-made, therefore they can be solved by man, and man can be as big as he wants. No problem of human destiny is beyond human beings. Man's reason and spirit have often solved the seemingly unsolvable, and we believe they can do it again. And if we cannot end now our differences, at least we can help make the world safe for diversity. For in the final analysis, our most basic common link is that we all inhabit this small planet. We all breathe the same air. We all cherish our children's futures, and we are all mortal.
Just a few days before posting this video, a crazy new development happened. Representative Anna Paulina Luna revealed Russia has agreed to release long-hidden KGB files on Lee Harvey Oswald, which reportedly depict him as unstable and unfit to be a lone assassin. She claims the CIA destroyed these documents in 1963, and their release this fall could expose new truths about JFK's assassination and his efforts for peace with the Soviet Union. So, basically, the CIA actively tried to control the Oswald narrative. This isn't intelligence gathering, it's policy action. This new development is a jaw-dropper because it could finally shed light on what the KGB really thought of Lee Harvey Oswald and why their intelligence never saw the light of day. If what Representative Anna Paulina Luna is saying is true, the CIA actually received those files at JFK's funeral, only for them to vanish under suspicious circumstances. That alone is shocking, but the kicker is the Russians claim they pegged Oswald as unstable and incompetent with firearms. Hardly the profile of a lone wolf assassin who pulled off one of the most consequential murders in American history. If these documents are released this fall as promised, they could directly challenge the official narrative that Oswald was solely responsible. It's not just history. It's potential evidence that the U.S. government actively suppressed information that contradicted its story. On top of that, the bigger context makes it even crazier. Luna pointed out that JFK was actually pursuing peaceful cooperation with the Soviet Union, including talks of a joint mission to the moon at a time when factions inside America's intelligence community were pushing for war in Cuba and confrontation with Russia. If Kennedy was seen as a communist sympathizer for trying to build peace, That could have given hawkish elements within U.S. intelligence all the excuse they needed to look the other way, or worse. Now, over 60 years later, the Russian government is the one offering to provide answers the U.S. has withheld. That's why this moment feels historic. The truth about JFK's assassination may come not from Washington, but from Moscow.